Right then folk, welcome back to another video beer review. Today we have a trio part of Pumpkin Beer Week. It was of course intended that I was going to be reviewing on these on different days and leading up ultimately to one of these beers, but instead we're having them as a versus, which I think is kind of fun to do. So as you can see from the image, we have three beers from Abbeydale. One of which I've had before. I've had this one before. I've had standard Abbeydale Pilgrim, pumpkin spiced ale. I think I had that last year. Got that one. We've got Twilight Pumpkin, which is a pumpkin spice latte stout, and then finally the big boy, Imperial Pilgrim, a pumpkin spiced ale, 8%. So yeah, let's see what the difference is. Of course, the difference between the stout and the other two is going to be quite large, but I try to use all glasses like these, but I've only got two of these, so the standard Pilgrim will have to go in this one, relatively close in terms of like nosing it and everything like that. So let's crack open the standard Pilgrim first. We'll read it firstly. A seasonal addition to our small batch brewers emporium range, this tasty spiced ale is fragrant, full-bodied and flavoursome with a lightly bitter finish. We've selected a classic combination of autumnal spices inspired by our favourite holiday recipes to create a cosy yet refreshing golden ale to keep those cockles toasty and warm. 5%, best before 16th of June 25. You wouldn't really want to be drinking it in that sort of time. 5%. Ingredients are water, barley, wheat, sugar, hops, pumpkin, allspice, cinnamon, cloves, ginger, nutmeg, yeast. There we go. Read through the other ones as well, I think, at the same time. Well, in fact, no, we'll just do it raw. Let's go straight in on the standard. Yep, smells like memories of last year. Very pale in colour. Now, of course, the other beers I've had, the other pumpkin beers, have all been a bit darker than this. It's definitely the palest one. Yeah, very pale, nice spritzy carbonation. Nose smells good. We'll go back into it. Once that's calmed down, we'll go and open the stout. We'll talk about the stout and open the stout. So Twilight Pilgrim Pumpkin Spice Latte Stout, 5%. Take the next step on your pilgrimage. The nights are drawing in. Get cozy with our pumpkin spice latte inspired Twilight Pilgrim. Warming spices and dark, robust coffee meld seamlessly with a fully malty body and a smooth, creamy finish to make this stout an instant autumnal classic. Well, I'll be the judge of that. Ingredients are water, barley, wheat, rye, lactose, hops, coffee, pumpkin, cinnamon, allspice, nutmeg, vanilla, ginger, cloves, yeast. A lot of adjuncts in this. But let's crack it open. And we're going to use a fuller's glass for this one. Don't normally get hold of Abbeydale beers just because, well, I haven't seen that many for a while. But all of a sudden a couple appeared on Trembling, and I've got a couple for the advent calendar, I think, but don't know what ones those are. But look at that, looks lovely. I mean, I know what the beers are for the advent calendar because I bought them, but I will forget by the time I actually do the review because they'll all be wrapped up in foil from probably some point next week. That looks really good, doesn't it? Oh, smells fab. Smells fab. I'll go further into the noses and tastes of everything. Finally, Imperial Pilgrim. So the other two I got from Trembling Madness. This one sold out, and at the time, Trembling hadn't created their builder box that they're doing now, so it just kind of left my basket. So then I had to hunt around and I found Wee Beer Shop up in Scotland. I can't remember exactly where it is. But they sent a lovely little message alongside of it. Hope you got everything you wanted. And I did. I got loads of beers. A huge selection for the advent calendar as well. Of beers from breweries I wouldn't normally be able to get hold of. So yeah, Imperial Pilgrim, pumpkin spiced ale. The pumpkin spiced ale you know and love, but bigger. Rich and full-bodied with our family recipe blend of aromatic spices, providing perfect, cosy autumnal vibes. Fragrant even, and flavourful with a delectable, warming finish. Ingredients are water, barley, wheat, hops, pumpkin, cinnamon, allspice, nutmeg, cloves, ginger, yeast. Not ginger yeast, but ginger and yeast. Right, we'll open this one up. Do pardon me, I'm going to yawn because it's been a bloody long week. 4 brews back to back is, on your own, is not particularly fun. Oh, better. That's better. Now this one's a nicer colour. I'd say this one's a little touch darker. Versus this, and the it's a touch darker. Would you say a touch more kind of orange? I'd say definitely a shade darker. All of them smell bloody delicious. As you know, I love a pumpkin beer, and I did jokingly say this morning that anyone who brews pumpkin beers needs to be on some form of register. I didn't brew a pumpkin beer as such. I brewed a standard beer and adulterated it to have pumpkin flavour. So I suppose it is a pumpkin flavour. And maybe I do need to go on a register for that. I don't know. I'm not going. Anyway, let's go on the standard Pilgrim. Yeah, that is really sweet. Yeah, nice light citrus. That kind of classic pumpkin-y sort of taste. Bit of cinnamon, nutmeg, clove coming through as well. We'll dive in. Cheers. It's really nice. There's a lovely kind of bready, biscuity finish, and then it comes into kind of more sweetness and pumpkin notes. Because you always wonder, you know you're going to get those tastes of pumpkin, really intense pumpkin, but you never know quite how full the beer is going to be of that flavour, if there's going to be any other flavours. And in this, there's a lovely kind of classic golden ale, bready, kind of nuttiness about it. Bready, biscuitiness about it. Now, I might be relatively well accustomed to pumpkin beers, and some of the pumpkin beers I had last night were, especially the one from Griffin Claw, that was outstanding. This, I'd say, is a little bit muted compared to that. A little bit less pumpkin, but there's definitely pumpkin present. But I'd say it's definitely there, so it's like sweet, kind of cinnamon, cloves, classic pumpkin taste, and then goes bready, biscuity. That one, to be honest, you could have that any time of year. I'm having these cans room temperature as well, because that's what I tend to do in the winter, rather than put them in the fridge. But yeah, it's sort of beer, weirdly, you could probably have most of the year. I wouldn't necessarily want to drink it too much in the summer because of the spices involved, but it's not the most intensely pumpkin-y sort of beer. Now, let's go on to the stout, which is same ABV, just effectively a dark version of that beer with a load of lactose in it. Aroma is like coffee, again that kind of pumpkin, bit of clove, nutmeg. Yeah, the coffee, it's a really roasty kind of coffee stout, I'd say. We'll dive in. Cheers. Coffee, more coffee, kind of cinnamon, nutmeg. The dominating flavour, I'd say, on this is clove. There's a lot of pumpkin on the nose, but less so on the taste. I kind of feel like I need a beer on the side to kind of keep adjusting my palate back to a normal beer. Do I have anything that I can do that with? I've got something horrific in that. Might have to act as a palate, refresher, because No, we're going doing it raw. The intense pumpkin the pumpkin flavours are kind of all melding in with this one. They are there, but I don't know whether they're also there from the previous one. But I think the kind of coffee, roasty, dark chocolate notes of the beer really dominate that yam. I'm American all of a sudden. Really dominate the pumpkin, and you don't really taste it quite as much as what you do in standard Pilgrim. When you can get it on the nose a lot. Yeah, that's like, I'd say, I don't know. I think they're about the same sort of level. Not quite as pumpkin-y as I sort of want. I need more pumpkin. So let's go on to the Imperial. Imperial pumpkin, 8%. That smells more pumpkin-y, and I'd say it also smells naturally more boozy. There's definitely more pumpkin in this. It's more intense. There's a lot more citrus, a bit more spice to it as well. I like this one. I didn't think I would, because I haven't drank a lot of Imperial beers as such for a while, and I don't really like buying 440ml cans of those sort of beers, apart from double IPAs. Imperial stouts and the like. I don't like buying 440s of them because, I enjoy the first couple of sips of them, and then it seems like, oh god, I've got a long way to go, sort of thing. So I tend to prefer 330s of MPs. But this is bloody lovely. The pumpkin sort of notes inside of it are so much more intense. The viscosity, the thickness of the beer, I'd say, is definitely a little bit more viscous. I always think of viscosity of a beer, and I think back to a Ridgeway beer. Not Ridgeside, it's Ridgeway, and it was like the insanely bad or insanely something, that whatever those beers were from 10-15 years back. And it literally poured like treacle. And it was one of the thickest beers I've ever drank. But in terms of, it was quite cloying and everything like that. This has resinous sort of notes of thickness, if that makes any sense at all to anyone. I hope it does. Rather than being like mega thick and creamy like a stout, it's more like gloopy. It's very strange to kind of try and describe textures and thickness and viscosities of beers. But yeah, nice body on it. Pumpkin is much more intense. I'd say to an extent the spices are a bit more intense. I'd say clove is quite a big one in this. Cinnamon still there. Nutmeg less so, but I'd say the clove is. I don't normally like tons of clove in a beer, but they have to be in a pumpkin beer sort of thing. Yeah. Now, let's do a versus of Standard Pilgrim versus Imperial Pilgrim. I kind of want next year. For them to do more in this series. You can't do 4. 4 would be wrong. You need to do an odd number. I don't know if Twilight Pilgrim is new this year. I mean, I've never bought it before, never seen it before. I've only ever had Standard Pilgrim. But Imperial Pilgrim, bloody good beer that is. Let's go back on the Standard Pilgrim. So thin compared to that. But inside of this, I'd say there's it almost like there's slightly more citrusy sort of notes in it. Definitely get that the bready, biscuity notes, more light citrus, quite floral. And on my big boy, it's just intense, way more pumpkin, a relative warmthness as well. Warmthness? Warmthness a word? Warmthness. There's a word for you. Yeah, I'd say it's slightly more warming because, of course, from the alcohol inside of it. Yeah. Interesting. Now approaching, well, it's going to be a 20-minute long review by the time I'm finished. Back onto the stout. Yeah, there's tons of coffee. I think the coffee and the pumpkin definitely do blend together, but I think the coffee kind of overshadows the pumpkin, and you don't really taste it as much. But it's a lovely. Well, I'd be interested if they did this sort of a stout, just a coffee stout of sorts on its own. It'd be bloody brilliant. Yeah, it's coffee pumpkin, really, isn't it? Coffee pumpkin stout, spice latte. But I think the kind of coffee dark chocolate flavours are of the stout are kind of dominating it, and it does kind of sit in the background. But yeah, what a lovely trio of beers. My favourite out of the three, surprisingly, has to be the big boy. When it comes to pumpkin beers, it nails it as a pumpkin beer. That's proper pumpkin beer for me. I love the stout. I think it's really interesting, but I think it needs a bit more pumpkin to it. And then the classic Pilgrim, the original, I'll always go back to that. As I said before, I think it's a sort of beer that is not too intensely pumpkin compared to the other pumpkin beers I've had, and I'd be happy to have that more of the year, even after Halloween, and beforehand as well. In the colder months, it's perfect. The spices and everything blended in, and the light sort of hoppy, citrusy sort of notes into it, as well as the bready, biscuity notes of that. Really nice. What a lovely trio to do. Soon enough, we'll be drinking normal beers back on the channel. So you can see a little. In fact, there is one Halloween beer that I only got delivered day before yesterday. In fact, no, it was yesterday. And we'll probably do that at the weekend. But aside from that, it's all now some pretty normal beers, pretty standard craft beers, a couple of ales and the like, before we come into December. It's still October as I say this. Before we come into December, where we'll be going through the advent calendar. I'm going to try and have my setup sorted by that time, where I can do some live reviews, but we'll see where we are. Anyway, thanks for joining, and if you're still here and watching, then I salute you. See you next one. Cheers.